Hi everyone, today Timex released yet another watch and it got me thinking, how many of us are going to be buying this watch in order to satisfy the void while we are saving up for our Grail watch, or the watch that we want the most? And so I just wanted to share some of my experiences and why I think that is a bad idea, and show you why I think you should save for the watch you really, really want, rather than buying a bunch of watches. So these three watches are the only watches I currently own. And to be honest with you, I only wear two of them. This one I'll wear probably a couple times a year. This is a Timex. It's no more than $30. It's a weekender. It's a fun little watch. I wanted something on a strap, and so that's why I got this watch. This is a watch that was given to me for my graduation. Also not very expensive, but I absolutely love this watch. It was one of the first watches that I wore almost every single day to work when I first graduated. So I had a real connection with the watch. Also because it was a gift. It's titanium. It's very light. It's very comfortable. It's solar powered. It never lets me down. Sometimes I keep it in a drawer for a very long time, months, and it still keeps ticking. And it's the watch that tells the best time. So I always use this when I'm setting the time for my Submariner. And so previous to these three watches, I actually owned a Steinhardt. If you're not familiar with a Steinhardt, it's sort of like a micro brand. It's an homage to Rolex. And purchasing that watch was a big mistake. And I'll tell you what happened. So I initially thought that the Datejust was my Grail watch, and I still love that watch. I still really want it. But when I saw the Submariner in person, I decided to change my mind. I thought for almost the same amount of money at the AD, the watch was just far more superior than a Datejust. A Datejust almost just looks too plain for the amount of money you're spending, which is about 8,800 Canadian, whereas the Submariner was about 9,500 Canadian. So the Submariner is definitely a lot more stunning, I think, for the price. And so that's why I went with the Submariner. But before all this happened, while I was saving up for my Datejust, I had saved up a few $1,000s, and I thought, wow, I've saved up some money here. I could use this money for other things, investments, property. I could buy a car, I could go on a very lavish vacation. And I can get something else that looks like a Submariner, for example, like an homage, or I can buy a bunch of cheap watches like Timexes and Seikos and micro brands, and that will fill the void of having a Rolex, at least for the time being. And it potentially will fill the void permanently. Maybe I don't need a Rolex. What am I really missing out on here? But as time went on, I realized that I wanted a Rolex. I didn't want something that resembled a Rolex. I didn't want 10 watches that equal the value of a Rolex. I just wanted one Rolex. And so luckily I was able to get out of that watch, which was a Steinhardt, and I got what I paid for it. It was about $700 Canadian, and it's still a great watch. It looked like a Rolex. It didn't perform like a Rolex, that's for sure, but for what it was a good watch. I think, I didn't need to get an homage though. For the same price, I could have gotten a stellar like Hamilton or something like that. And so I think that was a big mistake, and I just want to urge you that if you're going to be spending serious bucks on a watch, and you've decided on the watch that you wanted, and then you start to deviate once you've saved up some money, and you start buying micro brands or lesser known brands, where you think will fill the void of that, like your ultimate Grail watch, I think you'll regret it. So the trouble that you get into here is you've accumulated a bunch of cheap watches. You've realized you don't want those watches anymore and you want your Grail watch. And now you've got to get rid of those pieces. You've got to get out of those cheaper watches. And when you try and get out of them, you will most likely not get what you paid for them, unless you bought right. But more than likely than not, you're not going to get what you paid for a Timex. You're not going to get what you paid for not even a Hamilton, even maybe not even an Omega. And so when you start to liquidate, you're not going to get what you paid for it. And now it's going to take you longer to save up for the watch you actually wanted. And as time goes on, the watch you actually want is probably going to get more expensive. So that's where the real trouble kicks in. It's going to be harder for you to liquidate those what you thought were assets, but are actually not. So and this happens a lot in life. Whether you're buying property, maybe you should have just held out a little bit longer and bought the bigger place, the bigger bedroom, the bigger house, or maybe the car. You really want like a high-end vehicle, but like a Mercedes or a BMW, but you end up going with like a brand new Kia because it ticks all the boxes in terms of the technologies and stuff like that. But what you really want, I think, is that brand, and that's where I think a lot of guys make mistakes and they start to accumulate things that don't necessarily add up to the same value as what you really wanted. So I just caution you with that. I think the best policy is to just save up for the watch that you really want, because you're going to regret it if you don't, if you buy something else. And maybe for another discussion, I think in the next video will be how many watches is enough watches. I think we've all been guilty of buying fun watches or hype watches or cheap watches, but the costs add up. And if you approach life this way and you start to do things, buy things, fun things in all aspects of life, you'll realize you've spent thousands on something that doesn't bring you as much value as if you had like one really solid quality item, like a Rolex or something like that. So I'm really happy that I have my purchase now. I'm content. Like I could seriously die with just one watch, and so it really begs the question: how many watches do we really need? Do we really need to check off all the boxes when it comes to a stainless steel watch, a dress watch, a gold watch, a two-tone watch, a weekend watch, a work watch, an automatic watch, a quartz watch? How many watches do we really need? And you hear collectors talking about it all the time. They buy all these watches, but they could really only wear one at a time. And the watch that they generally go back to is a Rolex, because it's just so well balanced in terms of reliability, ruggedness. It wears well for many occasions, and so what else do you really need? And I know, like, I'm not speaking from like a collector's point of view because they're a little kooky. And my honest belief is that collectors are really just hoarders. And I'm not a collector. I'm not a watch geek. I would say I just wanted a solid quality item that I could have for the rest of my life, and that's why I have a Submariner. And so I'm a believer of downsizing and being minimal and enjoying what you have, because if you have 20 watches, you can't enjoy all of them. You can barely even enjoy one because you'll just be guilty of not wearing all of them. And so yeah, those are just kind of my thoughts. If you're holding out for the watch you really want, unless you're super rich and you're going to get all the watches, video is probably not for you. But at the same time, how many Pateks do you need? How many APs do you need? You just need one, I have 3 watches. I mainly just wear these 2. Of course, there are occasions where I don't want to wear my Rolex, whether I'm traveling or going to an interview. And so that's why I have a backup watch, but that's really all you need. So if you guys like this video, subscribe, give it a like, and next time we'll talk about how many watches do you really need. So thanks.